All right, thank you so much for staying with us here on New Dawn. We continue with the conversation, of course, as Gachagua, that is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, faces the Senate. I want us to take a look at what the Constitution says as far as impeaching the Deputy President is concerned, and try and see whether some of these grounds will actually, be tied to what the Constitution says. Now, Article 150 says the Deputy President may be removed from office on the ground of physical or mental incapacity to perform the functions of the office, or B, on impeachment. Now, on the ground of impeachment, rather, it is on the ground of gross violation of a provision of this Constitution or any other law, where there are serious reasons to believe that the Deputy President has committed a crime under national or international law, or for gross misconduct. Now, my question then will be, and I think I asked you this a little bit, a few minutes ago, on these 11 grounds, how do they come back now to what is defined in the Kenyan Constitution?
I think for it to succeed, the impeachment process to succeed, and the accusers of against the Deputy President to succeed, they must narrow down. Whatever you are accusing him must represent those 3 grounds. And I say that because even you say there is gross misconduct, you must support your grounds, a ground that if a grounds of insubordination which falls under the gross misconduct, you must adduce sufficient evidence to prove that aspect. If you don't, then that aspect of gross misconduct may not be properly addressed. When you talk about committing an offense under the Kenyan law, international law, some of the grounds talk about stealing public money, misusing public funds, and therefore it is the duty of the accuser to adduce sufficient evidence to show that he was in contravention of the law and he is guilty of that particular offense. That's why I told you that this Senate trial is more or less like a court trial. It's a quasi-judicial trial. It's like a tribunal, so which is listening the matter. So the verdict must be based on the law. The threshold must meet that indeed the Deputy President Gachagua committed an offense by stealing public money, committed an offense under international law by doing laundering. When you're talking about gross violation of the Constitution, you must clearly, from the 11 ground, pick a ground or grounds that support that aspect. Failure to which, then they may not be able to succeed in proving that he violated Article 150 of the Constitution of Kenya. Okay, so
when you are a lawyer, let me just put this there. When we talk about disinheriting the family, issues to do with, that I think played a major role, was flawed on in the National Assembly, talking about how can you disinherit a family? You're dealing with widows, you're dealing with, orphans and all that, you're touching women. Where does that come? How, if you are in a different state and you are told to, tie that to what the Constitution says as far as the impeachment is concerned, can you be able to trace that back?
I think, which I am sorry to say, but Parliament played to the gallery of the Deputy President. And I'm saying that because they accused him of other things apart from that. Then he came a day earlier and explained where he got his wealth. And therefore, instead of the Parliament, the National Assembly discussing the matters, they started emotionally reacting and trying to now counter what the Deputy President said, which was managing, I preempt you, then instead of you discussing my matter, you started discussing what I responded. Okay. So anything that was not listed among the 11 grounds when the motion was tabled in the National Assembly will not in any way be used as a ground to justify the impeachment of the Deputy President. Okay. So the grounds that were listed in the National Assembly, that's what... Because it was a reaction, an emotional reaction, and I pity them because they played to the tune that you told me that I have money, I have a hotel, I have businesses. Then I've told you I got it from inheritance. Okay. And you come to instead of accusing me, you started reacting that, no, I'm lying.
All right, Navi, you are in the House, you've seen this play before your colleagues, having to debate this particular issue. Some of the grounds, have been listed, and we've been able to see what he's calling reactions, whereby somebody comes out and says, swears another affidavit and signs it and says, okay, some of the information that was given, that was not true. I have different evidence that is going to prove otherwise. Where does this come in?
Let me tell you, Mami. Parliament was doing its politics. I also want to remind him, actually, I know Kashagwa lost about 20, 30 MPs by just having addressed the press.
Okay.
That I know. Because he then referred to Parliament in a very unfavorable manner. So they said, okay, let's see. But Parliament, from where I sit, the National Assembly has its case. Its case. I know the lawyers even prosecuting that case. They know what is required. Okay. I mean, this is a chamber, Senate is a chamber, and we know what the Senate requires in terms of threshold to prove a case. And as I told you, you don't need all the 11. But I know Parliament has its case. On this one, I know Parliament has its case, National Assembly has its case, and even the choice of who is going to prosecute. Let me tell you, there could be a lot of issues around the issue, rule of evidence, isn't it? But the issues of gross misconduct, have you asked yourself, do you know one of the witnesses? There's one witness there, I would be worried if I was a deputy speaker, the deputy president, secretary to the cabinet.
Masiwanjao.
And what is he coming to address? Issue of gross misconduct, issue of confidentiality. Yeah. So let's not preempt. Let's allow Senate to go through, but I can confirm to you Parliament has its case. I personally had a lot of misgivings until I got the bundle and went through. You know me, I read. I don't go to the floor. I read and go to the bundle, and I said, yeah, there's some information. So we allow Senate, let's allow National Assembly to prosecute its case. And the beauty about Senate, it has very good lawyers as members of Senate who will be able to ask questions even to the National Assembly. Did you see this? Did you check this? Does this mean?
So that comes in the aspect of clarification in terms of there's something that needs to be clarified by the Senate.
Yes. The Senate has very good lawyers. Very, very good, I can tell you.
Right.
Omogeni will not just go and tell him nonsense. Okay. Yeah.
So okay. Is there a chance that, and I know we don't want to preempt or say whatever is going to happen there, that you called it a sober house, not to demean the house that Nabi Nabuela sits in.
As we don't do, I've told you, you know there is a misgiving. Yeah. We don't do judicial process. Parliament does, Senate does, quasi-judicial process. Ours is political.
Okay. So that was a political process, and that's what was wanted to inform my next question. Are we likely to see a political process playing out in the Senate? Because you know, there's some people have faith. Others are like, we saw the National Assembly. We are hoping that the Senate might be different, but it is likely to go the same direction, because at this end of the day, they might be lawyers, but these are politicians allied to political parties that are ruled by individuals that might want the deputy president out.
Just to clarify, Senate, of course, looks sober by virtue of their functions. But then we are not going to divorce the politics from the Senate, because the senators are politicians in the long run. What would be different is the process. Will be very different in terms of adducing evidence and giving chance for the DP to respond to accusations and table his own evidence and get cross-examined, then give his closing remarks before it is debated. So what will still remain to be political will be at taking the vote, because you have done all this, you have received all the information, you have tied all these 11 to either gross misconduct or having committed a crime, all that under national law or international law. But again, the politics have to come into play because at the voting point, it is the numbers that will determine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only that this time round, the voting is not based on who argued what on the floor of the House. Okay. It is based on what was presented before the Senate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does the Deputy President have a chance in the corridors of justice based on what we've been able to experience from the National Assembly as far as the process is concerned? And I know we are now at the Senate and we need to give it time to be able to prosecute this particular matter and come to a conclusion. But already we have close to 20 cases in courts. You know, they are tied on something. When you look at it from a lawyer's perspective, and you look at the process and you look at what is being presented in the corridors of justice and what his argument is, does he have a case that could, you know, maybe we are saying his fate is now hanging by a thread, that could be that one thread that could end up saving him?
We all definitely have a chance at the courts, and the DP is no exception, because the fact that he has gone through this, there have been processes that there may be just one particular issue that would arise, maybe in terms of how the evidence was collected, how this was presented to the National Assembly, the aspect of public participation. I mean, when we go to the courts eventually after Senate is done, then all these processes come to play.
Now, on this public participation, those are an argument, and I believe that was coming during the debate and even before, that there's nowhere in the Constitution that says we have to conduct a public participation. So will this then, can we use the Constitution and say, by the way, the public participation was not a necessity, we just did it, but you cannot argue that, you use that to argue a case? Is that a possibility?
Unfortunately, no. And I'm saying that because the moment public participation is a constitutional requirement. So the moment National Assembly, even though in their rules of impeachment is not clearly provided for, the moment they agreed to subject that themselves in that aspect, then it must be conducted according to the law. And that's why the same way Mheshimiwa Nabii mentioned that you just Senate need one ground to get out the DP. Equally, if one aspect is not properly followed
in that process,
yes, which may be an aspect of public participation, and which then the High Court has equal right to do away with the whole process. Okay. So these issues will play around, because when you have subjected yourself to a process, then you'll be interrogated to know whether it met all the requirements, was it done in proper accordance, how was the notice issued, how long was the notice, how sufficient did we, the feedback, the collection of the feedback, how it was done, the efficiency, who even collected this feedback. Most of the constituency, in the constituent level, it was being done by those employees, the staff who work for the members of parliament. Some of them, even photographers, were the ones issuing forms. Now, so there's so much that surrounds the constitutional issues, and I don't want to preempt them. But if one of the process, a constitutional requirement, was violated, then we should expect the High Court to stop, to nullify the process. Okay. Yes.
I was in Nyeri.
Yeah, just something.
Yeah.
You know, when the drafters of the Constitution, and I want to say I was one of the teams that was working on it, when they put the issue of public participation at the center of our Constitution, they also had another assumption, that Parliament will enact a Public Participation Act law to enable, up to today, even the policy itself. So the courts have been trying to define parameters. And sometimes they say this, sometimes they... One time they are talking on quality, and another time they are talking on quantity. So those are the issues. So it depends on which bench is sitting, whether it will be looking at quality or it will be looking at quantity. But that's as it may. I just wanted to disabuse something here. Why do we say Senate is quasi-judicial, whereas the other quasi is quasi-political? So one half, they will do a judicial process in a political environment. Now, what do I mean by that is this. There are other questions that Senate will ask themselves as they go into this, which are purely political. One of them is the stability of the country. When they are looking at stability of the, how do you define judicially, the issue of stability of a country is a political thing, isn't it? Of course, don't forget that even in that Senate, it comprises of political parties. So the issue about political intuition, political philosophy will come into play after looking at it, and then therefore, eventually, a decision will be made. So don't divorce politics from what will happen.
And as we wind up, because I think I'm really running out of time, I want to start with you, Nabi, as we wind up on this conversation. What mistakes were made in this union between the head of state and his deputy that got us to this particular position right now as we speak?
Any marriage based on deceit.
Where is
the coating had problems. the coating was not real. The coating was not real. The issue was Uhuru Maliza Ende, Raila Ende Bondo. I mean, what philosophy is that? What is the political philosophy behind that? And now, I've said from where I sit, and with due respect, the president we have is strong-willed, very strong-willed, a hands-on person. Kashagwa is another strong-willed person, a hands-on person. There were going to be conflict. That can't work. That can't work. One needed to be a backroom staff. One needed to be. Kashagwa would have done very well with a person like Kibaki. Yes, because Kibaki was backroom, Kashagwa is a front fighter. So from day one, from where I sit, I may be wrong. From where I sit, I strongly believe the president knew at some point they will divorce.
From day one?
From day one. You know, sometimes you do politics by design. Yeah, politics. He needed the mountain, and the person who would do the mountain work was Kashagwa. Okay. And he did it pretty well. But also, I want to say this. Kashagwa did not do 4 things. Thing number 1, he did not read the 48 rules of power. Thing number 2, he did not understand what a deputy is. He believed they were in co-presidency. And then number 3, he did not know that how to relate with the legislature. Actually, the Kashagwa's undoing has been the mountain. The members of parliament from the mountain. Actually, this is the issue. Really, does indeed not worry you that over 60% of them said we don't want him. So the final thing is a question of relationship building. It is an individual story. He needed to entice himself to his boss without antagonizing those around the boss. Okay. You know, the boss has his own, the Sudis of this world.
Okay, so when he came out and said the people surrounding the boss are the one undermining my relationship with the president, and to some extent, you know...
that was a boardroom issue. It was not a public issue. That's a boardroom issue. It's like your wife. If you have issues, you handle. You don't go to where the children are and say, "Where unanisumbua sana huko kwa bedroom." How will the children behave?
Okay. I do want us to take a look at some feedback before I give Steve and Brenda, a minute for their final remarks on this. What are Kenyans saying online, John? So we start with Wallace Okango, says Gachagua to Madeira, pressure increase anyway. It's their time to shine. 2027, they join you, right? Njeri Jen says, I'm sure there are some senators who wanted Justice Chacha Mwita to stop the proceedings regarding impeachment of Gachagua because they don't have free will. Now they will get exposed. But just a clarification on that, it still have gone on. Samson Jumbe says, Senate should expose the immaturity and shame that Kenyans have seen at National Assembly. Kenyans spoke loudly, but some MPs went against people's wishes. They are now coming out to say how they were hoodwinked that one of their own will be given the seat, quote unquote. Okay. Kavuli says Gachagua isn't going anywhere. You can take this to the bank. Even if impeached, courts will overturn his impeachment. Brian Muranda says Gachagua is a distraction so Adani deals can go through. He is part of the game. Okay. I have to be paying a very heavy price for that. Dennis John says our focus should be Adani. Okay. Let's take Moses Ndichu. I support DP request for the court to hold the Senate and Parliament hearing and determining the impeachment motion. This is a constitutional process mandated to Parliament. Now the Senate is at liberty to interrogate, scrutinize the impeachment if any process. All right. Thank you so much for your feedback. A minute each. Brenda, let me start with you. The relationship between the Deputy President and the Head of State, has faced hurdles. How did they get here as you make your final remarks?
Marriage of convenience, lack of political ideologies in our parties, so that we are looking at who is helping me fight who, or who can fight who best. Then you just match them, even where they do not have the same ideology, and that will continue. Even whoever would come in to replace Gachagua, should he go, God forbid. Of course, I say that very lightly because again, the accusations against him are not very light. Okay. But at the same time, whoever else will come in, for as long as it is for convenience, for as long as there is no convergence of thought between the president and the deputy, because they basically play the same role. One is only there to deputize in the absence of the president. We will still face this, and it is the very same case we are facing with governors and the deputy governors. Any position that has a deputy, maybe we should reconsider why we made this a one-ticket thing. Okay. Yeah.
Steve, your final remarks. We've started courting and trying to get a replacement for Gachagua even before he steps out of office. And there's a comment there that says, already started. Some people feel like their people have not been chosen, and that's why they're thinking, why did we go through with all this? Your take?
I think first and foremost is how did Gachagua get into all this in the first place? And it's very unfortunate because I think he brought in money, and unfortunately now the president has the money and the power, and therefore he doesn't find any use. Therefore, one of the mistakes I think Gachagua made was lack of political power when he was coming on board. But secondly, I also think we have had a space where most of our leaders come together because of their common enemy. We saw Uhuru and Ruto come together because they were facing a common enemy, and therefore ultimately that marriage had to crumble down. So this convenience of which is not bound by ideologies that can last beyond that particular season is what we are seeing right now. Secondly, we know that in our political spaces, which we have witnessed, we have a space where we don't have proper party structures, because you find that people join the movement or join a grouping or a political party, not because, but is a vehicle to take them from one space to another. And I think that is the mistake we need to stop and now create leaders who are anchored on ideologies that are geared to make our country better, who can outlive even the political atmosphere of the day.
So someone will argue, okay, the reason as to why he got himself into this particular position is because he did not have a vehicle that he got into this marriage with. If he had had a party from his region. All right, thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for your time here on the program. I really do appreciate that you could make it for this conversation this morning as we look forward to what could change the political scene in the coming days here in the country, and also just the history of this particular nation as the second in command faces an impeachment motion. All right, my name is Brian Amwai. That does it for this particular session of New Dawn. Of course, I'll be coming back in just about 5 minutes with a different panel to get into the details and the political implications of the Gachagua impeachment at the Senate. Do not go too far. Continue engaging us on our socials at K24 TV across social media platforms. I'll be back in a few with more on the Deputy President's fate with the Senate.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa. Arena 254. Join Aisha Wanjiko and Tony Mwirigi for all the artistic interviews fused with amazing entertainment conversations and sizzling hot live DJ mixes. Catch this and so much more every Saturday from 10 p.m.
Skuzi nimetizi na wakanesa manzi mkamba anishuko mirema.
Only on K24 TV. Catch every thrilling moment of the English Premier League. The German FA Cup.
Harry Kane scores! How many times have you heard that?
La Liga. Serie A.
Marcus Thuram!